Tonight's 7th and 8th grade meeting is about extracurricular, co-curricular activities. Mr. Love is going to present tonight, and Ms. Brandy is going to give us a brief update on staffing. We are at a good place with staffing our schools, so she will give us an update on that. Also, I have in the audience tonight, we did name a principal, someone who will be head of our 7th and 8th graders at the high school, Ms. Tina. She's going to be our lead administrator on that campus for 7th and 8th grade. And we also have Ms. Dawn. She's here. She's going to be her assistant there as well. So we made a lot of progress as it relates to staffing. So we are super excited. They are phenomenal leaders. And they also bring that Napoleonville Middle School culture and all the skills that they have as far as teaching and learning throughout the district. So we're super excited about that. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Love. He's going to talk a little bit more about the extracurricular and co-curricular activities that we have for our students. Mr. Love.
Good evening. My name is Donnie Love, Director of Student Services here in Assumption Parish Schools. It's my honor to share with you the extracurricular and the co-curricular programs as we move through the consolidation of the 7th and 8th grade to Assumption High School campus. The first thing, any program, athletic program, and then also co-curricular program, you have to have a philosophy. Usually in middle schools, you don't have philosophy based upon what you want to accomplish with your athletic program, but then when they move to the high school level, you do have the philosophy that is set, okay? The benefit of having the 7th and 8th grade on the high school campus when it comes to athletics and then also with the extracurricular activities is the students begin to learn the philosophy and Assumption High's way of doing things, which would be considered the Mustang way. They learn it in 7th and 8th grade. That builds their foundation. So then by the time they get through their 9th to 10th grade year, you could continue to build upon that foundation, and the kids just continue to improve and excel at whatever program they're involved in. The Mustang way, and this is in their athletic handbook, which is the student athlete will benefit positively from a wholesome athletic program. And Assumption High School aims to foster the qualities in its young athletes that promote high ideals, strong character, and values that will help them become valuable citizens. So this would be the philosophy that they would start teaching the kids from 7th grade and then 8th grade until those values are instilled and it becomes who they are as student athletes, and then also kids who participate in extracurricular activities. Now, when it comes to our extracurricular activities, and then also with the sports that we will offer for 7th and 8th, there are some sports that are going to be guaranteed, but also we will and clubs as well, but we also have the potential to offer more sports and clubs based upon student interest. So the beginning of the school year, and then we've also done a few at the 7th and 8th grade meetings at the campuses, but at the beginning of the school year, there will be we will give a survey to the students to gauge their interest on what clubs they might want to participate in, and then also sports. So if we don't have that club currently, and we're able to find a sponsor for that club or a coach that's willing to coach that particular sport, then we can institute that sport for the 7th and 8th grade students as well. So the following slides that I'm going to present will give potential offerings, but they are not limited to what we are presenting. So for clubs and organizations, they're led by club sponsors. The selection of the clubs, like I said, will vary based upon the number of sponsors that we have. Usually the students will determine what they're interested in, and then the principal will then go and find a sponsor who is able to lead that particular club. The goal is to have the middle school club selection mirror the high school club selection. Currently, these are the middle school club selections that we know we will be able to offer, which will be FCA, Junior Beta, the PBIS club, science club, and student council. So those we already know that we'll be able to offer and that we have sponsors for those clubs. There are additional clubs that we potentially will be able to add depending upon more sponsors. And then also, as I said earlier in the previous slide, student interest, okay? The athletic options for our middle school students, and once again, these are the same options that we had for the students the previous years and the competitions that we had in the district tournaments and the district schedule. So boys and girls, we'll definitely have boys and girls basketball. We will have baseball and softball. We will have football and volleyball. And then we'll have boys and girls track. Now, high school sports have several other sports that they offer. They offer cross country, tennis, golf, bass fishing, and powerlifting. Okay, so we do know that there's a potential for these sports to also be added to the 7th and 8th grade level. However, we won't be able to determine that until we find out how many students are interested in participating in these sports, number one, and then two, we're able to determine which coaches would be able to coach it. So once we fill in the coaching staff for each sport for the 7th and 8th grade, and then we determine what they want to participate in, then we can add those extra sports. Now, there's another caveat that we have for our 8th grade students. We will give the 8th grade students an opportunity to compete or participate in varsity sports, okay? Now, they would have to try out like any other high school student, all right? These are the sports that the boys and girls could potentially try out for. For the boys, baseball, basketball, cross country, football, golf, powerlifting, tennis, and track. And then we're also looking at creating a soccer team on the high school level, but once again, that will depend upon student interest in that program. Same thing with the girls. We have basketball, cross country, golf, powerlifting, softball, tennis, track, and volleyball, okay? And possibly would have the opportunity to add a girls' soccer team depending upon the interest. Now, the 8th grade students will have the opportunity to try out for any of these sports. If that student is talented enough and has the skills necessary to be able to participate on the junior varsity or the varsity level, then that coach could then add that student to their roster. However, there is a caveat in that 8th grade student participating in varsity athletics that I'm going to share with you shortly. So for the middle school seasons, we will align the sports that we offer according to the LHSAA season sports schedules. We do plan on having the middle school seasons in shorter than or briefly before the high school season ends. And the reason why is because we don't need the middle school sports conflicting with the playoffs on the high school level. Usually for a middle school season, like for football, they may play 6 to 7 games a year or a season. High school usually plays 10. And then they go into the playoffs. So they should be finished with their season prior to the playoffs, but we definitely will make sure as we schedule the seasons, it will be finished before the playoffs. However, we will add more games for the middle school teams compared to what we were able to play when we played in the parish, and we'll also give them more competition outside of the parish, since we will have one parish team that will either travel or have schools outside of the parish come and compete against our students. So we will be able to add more games. I think for the volleyball season, we had something like 5 games, and then we had our championship. For volleyball for middle school, we'll be able to have at the very least 15 games. So it's gonna allow our kids to get more exposure, and then also they'll get an opportunity to start practicing and playing along with the philosophy of the high school teams, okay? Now, the one caveat that I wanted to share for eighth graders who play varsity sports, the LHSAA rule is this: the moment that we add you to a varsity team, then your eligibility begins, okay? With that being said, at that point, you are considered a varsity athlete. You cannot, once you are a varsity athlete, you cannot go back and play middle school sports, okay? So if you are a football or a volleyball star at eighth grade, and the coach decides that they want to pull you up to the varsity team or the junior varsity team, and they enlist you in the LHSAA system, after that volleyball season is over or football season is over, you cannot then go back and participate in middle school basketball, track, etc. At that point, your middle school sport or athletic career is done. You're now considered a varsity athlete. Now, here is some further information with that. It starts when you enroll in the LHSAA or when you play a sport that's a varsity sport. So if you start the year off and you play all middle school sports, and let's say they add you at the end of the year for baseball or softball or track, and you're considered a varsity student then those sports that you played at the beginning of the year will not count against you. Okay, so that's kind of how that rule goes. You may or may not, everybody may or may not agree with that rule, but it is an LHSAA rule and we have to abide by that. All practices and then home games will be held on Assumption High School's campus for our middle school sports as well. So the next thing I wanted to discuss was middle school cheer and dance. We are doing the guidelines for this just a little bit different, and these may be subject to change based upon the sponsor that will take over these programs. But for the current time, middle school cheer will consist of only middle school students. So 7th and 8th grade students will be eligible. We will stay separate from junior varsity and varsity cheer because we don't believe that we should have middle school cheerleaders around varsity athletes. And then we also will only participate in the middle school games and events for those cheer teams unless they were to do something special and the principal were to allow them to cheer at a varsity game for a quarter or something along those lines. Also for a dance line, if a dance line is created for middle school, it will follow the same rules as the middle school cheer. It'll only be 7th and 8th grade eligible. It'll stay separate from the varsity dance, and it will only participate in the middle school games and events unless there was a special exception made by the principal. So the final thing would be the band. All right, so for band, middle school students will have the opportunity to participate in band courses to improve their overall talent and ability. They also will have the opportunity to try out or participate in the extracurricular high school band activities, and that will be based upon the discretion of the high school band director, okay? Band is a little bit different. That high school director will be able to tell if that student is mature enough in their musicianship to be able to participate on the level of a high school student. So with that being said, we are looking forward to the changes. We think that they're going to be positive changes. Like I said, and I totally believe the 7th and 8th grade is the foundation for the high school. When you instill those values and those skills and fundamentals in those kids in 7th and 8th grade, by the time they get to high school, when it comes to athletics, they don't necessarily have to think about the position that they're playing and how to play it, or the formation or the plays and things of that nature, they can start focusing on the subtleties of the game. Same thing with junior beta or 4-H and clubs of that nature. When they're exposed to it at a younger age, they master it earlier. So then by the time they get to their sophomore, junior, and senior season, they're able to excel at a level further than what they would have if they didn't start being exposed to it at ninth grade. So once again, we are excited about the change. We think it's going to be excellent. And any change is always a challenge for people, but it's always your perception. It's how you look at it and how you see it. If you choose to go at it from the perspective of we're going to excel and be excellent, that's going to be the case, and we'll put in the work to make that happen. So with that being said, I'll now open the floor up to any questions. Yes, ma'am. I would look, did you want to? Okay. We would look to hire a middle school band director, but that band director will work hand in hand with the high school band director. You're going to need both of them to work together if you're going to merge the middle school students with the high school band, especially when it comes to marching season or whenever they play in the stands. You kind of need both to help all the sections.
It's a lot of this is driven off of interest. So currently, right now, for example, we have, correct me if I'm wrong, 32 students interested in band that are in 7th and 8th grade. So the question becomes, can we fill in a band or have a complete schedule for just one person if we only have 32 kids interested? And we're looking at the high school and saying, is there an opportunity there where that particular band director can actually work with our 32 students in middle school while we service our other schools with our other band directors? So it's really driven by interest. So I just wanted to kind of give you an idea, like, right, I'm 32 students based on schedule request submissions. 7th and 8th grade, both combined. Well, I think you're looking at it two ways. So I think you're looking at band as a club, like as an organization. So those kids, even if I'm not in band or if I'm exploratory, I still want to play in band. I think there's an opportunity for you to join like after school and things like that, right? But if you're a band student, then you make a selection to be in band for the entire year. So, I think it's flexible. I think if a student shows interest throughout the year, a student can join band. Yeah. Well, let me ask this question. Are you talking about the band course itself? It's going to be, yeah. It's difficult on Ms. Terry.
evaluate as it goes on.
And you have to be very careful.
Complex. Things, can the schedule be moved around? But yeah, there's a few different things you have to look at.
Yeah, but you have to understand, once we create our schedules, that's for those teachers throughout the whole year. We're not on a 9-week schedule where you get to change in all your courses. So we have to be very, very careful with that, because if I have 26 kids in the class, and then I move 10 kids out of that class, now I have 16, but 10 kids want to go into another class, but that class is already full. You have to be very, very careful with that. We can't just allow changes throughout the middle of the year like that. It's very, very difficult.
I mean, I think it's something that.
It's not just a yes or no.
Gray areas that could potentially happen, but it might not align for that child, or it may not fit, it might become overpopulated. And we've always done, and I would think, and I gotta be with Tina more, one of the things we're gonna look at for 7th and 8th grade, or, just like we do with the high school, like there's that couple days at the beginning of the year, if you notice an issue, or if you have a change to like making schedule, you can report it, and we can look at it and make adjustments. So there's that early window that we really kind of think a lot of changes, if applicable, and then there's the later ones that we kind of just gotta judge based on all the different components.
Yeah, to answer your question, the answer is no. It's not a practice. It's not something we're going to practice, because we don't want to mess up people's schedule, because it's already done. People are hired based on, schedule requests and interests and things like that. But we do understand, and like Ms. Thibodeau said early on, we do understand that might be an opportunity to move some kids around. But once you locked in a class, it's kind of difficult. Then you're messing with grades and so on and so forth. So it's kind of difficult. I also want to say, if there's an opportunity, and I think we want to at least not block this completely out, because there are talks about some parents have asked about A and B teams, or like a middle school, like if we have, I don't know, let's say 80 kids that want to play football. So instead of cutting, 40 kids, can we make another team, like a one team, two? I think that's a possibility, but I think it all depends on the number of students we have interested in that particular sport or that particular programming. So I'm not going to rule that out, but we definitely need to know. We need to know early on, because schedules are being created now for our middle school students, and we're lining those up, and we're already committed to a lot of schools and a lot of teams.
I have a question, please.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
apologize for being late to begin with, but you have here that all practices will be held at AHS campus. How will that work for like volleyball and basketball that both need a gym?
They're going to rotate the gyms. I've already been meeting with Ms. Campo to solve how we're going to rotate the kids through. So they're working on that schedule now.
So 7th and 8th graders could trump a varsity team?
I didn't say that they would trump it. I said we're working on the schedule for how we're going to rotate the teams in at what times that they're going to practice. Sometimes they're going to be in the weight room working out. Sometimes they're going to be doing strength conditioning, training, things of that nature. So they're going to rotate the times in which they've come through. And that was one of the main concerns when we were initially discussing it. And we've been working on that schedule. So they will have it set for them. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Anyone else? Questions? All right. Yes, sir.
Next, we have Ms. Brandy. She's going to come up and briefly talk to us a little bit about staffing. Obviously, we are finishing up a lot of our conversations as far as staffing is concerned. So she's just going to give us a quick little update of where we are. Ms. Brandy?
Good evening, everyone. We went to schools at the end of March, beginning of April, met with every campus, discussed the process for reduction in force once it was voted on or approved by the board. And so in those meetings, we gave people a timeline that after the last meeting, then I'd start reaching out to any displaced individual, talking to them personally before you just receive a letter in the mail, as our policy says. So I did do that in the weeks after our meetings, and then as of today, principals receive staffing rosters with projected enrollment numbers, like staffing, typically like we do in February-ish. So would they have projected numbers, they have staffing rosters, and then our transfer emails went out today as well. So the next step is principals will give us our vacancy list. I will post those next week. Individuals can apply for that, and then the interviewing processes can start. So we had communicated that we would be right around beginning of May, middle of May, with trying to have as many positions filled as possible. And that is right on timeline with where we're at.
Ms. Brandy, just one question. Can you, I know we had talked about this before and may have been explained, but can you explain the process of how that placement worked with the metrics that you use to place people, like their certifications and years of service or anything like that? Can you explain that again, just so we have an idea of the process and metrics you use to do that?
It was kind of twofold in terms of our displaced individuals, you mean, or the transfers? With transfers, we put out letters of intent, and we asked for first and second choices. And then what I did is I separated the data into current positions, transfer requests, who was retiring, resigning, things of that nature. And then I went through and looked to see which individuals needed a home, because theirs would no longer be there. So those were placed first. And then went to the typical transfer process, which is if I'm at a school and I want to transfer to a different school, then I communicated with principals, both principals agreed, then, and there's a spot, then you would get potentially your transfer or denied a transfer if there was no spot or they didn't agree. And then I did have some cases where a few individuals might have requested, but then I went to teachlouisiana.net, looked at the certification areas, and if it wasn't aligned, then you may not have been granted a transfer. But for the most part, and that's what I told individuals walking through the meetings, I thought it was going to work out. I think it did, based off of what their first and second choices were. So that's how we ended up placing them. Yeah. You're welcome.
I'm just coming in. Can I ask you one question? Does everybody now know if they're going to be RIFT or?
Yes, ma'am.
position?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I've communicated with everyone. There are a few positions that we may need to lock down the specifics of a person's schedule, but if you don't have a position next year, I have communicated that with them. Transfers, I've communicated, but there's a few little outliers, but it's just because of the nature of that position. Yeah, you're welcome.
And I just want to say thank you. I know you've been working extremely hard to make sure that this process goes as smooth as possible. And I told you earlier today, I think you did a great job. Not a good job. I think you did a great job. And also I want to say thank you for getting ahead of it, because there was a lot of communications throughout the district. We met with teachers, we made announcements, we sent out all the information. So thank you for that. And I want to say thank you to the department, but I know you're one of two, you and Ms. Carey. So I just wanted to let you know you did a phenomenal job. It was great. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Anyone else? All right, thank you. This concludes our session on extracurricular and co-curricular activities and staffing. I think we have one more session, but it's just to wrap up everything. It's not really to give a whole lot of information, but just to bring it all together. From this point moving forward, those employees and staff, parents, you will start, probably after we finish, just start getting communications from that leadership team and things like that as far as what's to come. So thank you again. We appreciate everybody. Have a good evening.
Right ahead of you. Right ahead of you. Mr. Love did his thing and then she did hers. Really not. Trina? Okay. Who's the date? Yeah, no, he's not saying it, so. Nope. Yeah. My boy had a good birthday or what?
I don't know, he had to work today, Macy had to work today, so, but one of the coworkers just texted me, she was like, what's Macy's favorite, birthday cake, do you want to surprise her, and I'm like,
Y'all better hurry.
so I'm excited.
Y'all better